formidable as it was not enough to kick the tyrant out of power. It had to take the full might of an international force to protect that vote. Without that international pressure, I have no doubts that the Gambia would have been in a civil war at this very moment. Rain is invisible in the sweat is invisible in the rain. It's not all about D30 resistance, but indeed about the life and ideals of a humble human being and the story of a people from pre-colonial times until date. This book is about the life of Cherno as a young Nongo Banjul and his trials and tribulations to his journey to the New World and back to the Gambia. In the book, one will get to understand the internal makeup of Cherno, to understand his deep resolve, focus, and sense of duty as values that he picked early in his life from his father and mother. Cherno narrates that he learned different yet complementary lessons from his parents, even though both parents carried essentially the same principles. From his mother, Ya Aida Gay, he learned the values of Yar, Tegen, and God. And from his dad, it was essentially about accountability. That is, discipline and punishment, which the old man insisted were prerequisites for harmony, respect, cooperation, and love within the family. At home, in number 2 New Street, Banjul, one has to get in Papa Momodu Njie's territory. The precepts are clear. Do not lie. Speak only the truth, with an honest heart and without envy. Look after one another and share. Love, work, and take responsibility for oneself and your space. This was a no-nonsense home. I wonder if we have such homes today in the Gambia. Sweat. Do you guys wonder about it? What kind of a title is that? Surely one cannot notice sweat when you are in the rain. But what does this signify? They say that an author, in writing about himself or herself, writes about his or her time, the fears, the hopes, the aspirations, and his circumstances. So when we read autobiographies, we are engaging in a conversation with the author and his or her time, and in which they give us none but the best and the most select of their thoughts. So, what then are the thoughts of Cherno? Cherno's thoughts have always been to create a better Gambia, period. In remembering his fallen comrades, Cherno reminded us of the mission to collectively rebuild the Gambia so that there will never be such evil regime that will claim the lives of our citizens with impunity. In order to achieve that new Gambia, he calls on us to engage in collective self-examination, noting that after all, Yaya Jammeh was a product of Gambian society. He lamented the fact that indeed Gambians permitted Yaya Jammeh to victimize the country as if helplessness were part and parcel of Gambian life. We are 3 years since the ouster of Yaya Jammeh. I have to ask, have we changed? I agree with Cherno that the coalition and the borough administration in particular achieved very little in these past 3 years. The reforms we envisaged through constitutional, legal, and institutional reforms clearly stipulated in their 2016 campaign manifesto intended to effect system change by transforming the country from dictatorship to democracy largely failed to take place. Not only has the coalition shattered into pieces, but a whole new wave of personality and sectarian politics have emerged that seeks to maintain the country in corruption, poverty, and deprivation with a new culture of disrespect for the Constitution and blatant disregard of the rule of law perpetrated by none other than the state itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, in welcoming you to this most important forum, Cherno challenges us to reflect on our past experiences with a strong reminder and resolve that we have a country to build. We cannot and we must not commit the same mistakes as we made a whole generation just past. The fact that scores of Gambian youths could die in the cold and deep waters of the ocean today in search of greener pastures elsewhere clearly indicts all of us that indeed we are failing in the collective mission to salvage Mother Gambia. That tragedy, if anything, indicates that until today, the very ideas, structures, practices, and tools that were used to abuse and exploit and oppress our people remain intact. I have made the point all the time that at the end of the day, it is we the people who can deliver democracy and good governance to ourselves. Democracy will not be delivered from the State House, nor from the National Assembly or from the Office of the Inspector General of Police. If that were the case, by now we would have achieved all of the constitutional, legal, and institutional reforms to weed out all of the vestiges of the past and lay the foundation of a new Gambia of freedom, dignity, and opportunities. The current state of our nation is uncertain and worrying, to say the least. There's a gross deficiency of political leadership, while our social capital is almost completely eroded, giving way to polarization on the basis of partisanship, ethnicity, religion, and region. Therefore, if there is any moment that citizens must stand up to defend the best interests of the Gambia, it is now. It is now because the greatest harm done to Gambians during the long period of dictatorship is the total weakening and erosion of the value systems of the people. As it occurs anywhere where dictatorship was entrenched, the drive to build a new woman and a new man of values and standards has always been daunting. That could turn either way and quite easily in the wrong direction in most cases. Nations that underwent and emerged out of long-standing conflict or authoritarian rule find it more difficult to rebuild, not because they lack the financial, the material, and the human resources, but because of their terrible experience, they are devoid of morality, patriotism, and cohesion. To stop and reverse this reality requires effective, visionary, and value-based leadership that is able to mobilize, organize, and lead the masses towards restoration of social capital, upholding accountability, and the respect for the rule of law necessary for the building of a new society. As I speak, the Gambia lacks that kind of leadership currently. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, let me welcome you all to this forum once more. But in so doing, to join me to applaud Mr. Cherno Njie, a citizen who has demonstrated indeed what it means to love a country and be committed to that love by any means necessary. Kindly join me to applaud Mr. Njie, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Uncle Madi, for those wonderful and indeed very true words. We appreciate you coming here. It is an honor. Before we move on to the next speaker, we're just going to invite briefly.
Thank you very much once again, Marlon. And at this juncture, we are introducing His Royal Highness Obamashud Obalade Ariwajai I, the King of Yoruba community in the Gambia.
And he will briefly address the audience.
Welcome, King.
Good afternoon, all. You are welcome to this beautiful occasion. I'm highly delighted to be here in the midst of eminent personalities, the professors, the doctors, the community leaders. If I want to mention names, I'll keep us waiting here for long. Because I can recognize Honorable O.J. Jallo, which we met several times, and then many others. What we are doing today, I'm glad to be briefed about it, which is a culture, politics, contemporary issues in the Gambia. You know, as a royal father, the king don't interfere in the politics of the country. Whether you are in your motherland or your fatherland, a royal father should be a royal father. You must maintain your partisanship in doing survey. But about the culture, which I am fully a champion, I must say something about that one as far as Gambia is concerned. Gambia is known to be a peaceful country that accommodates everybody, everyone, irrespective of where you are coming from. Once you enter Gambia, you are welcome. I came to Gambia 21 years ago. I'm fully integrated into the society. Here today, I have my community members. Can you please stand up for recognition of our community members? Thank you very much. You can see that. We must applaud the Gambia for allowing us, for embracing us. Please, shall we clap for Gambia? Shall we applaud the Gambia? When I mean the Gambia, I mean the society. We are the ones that make up of the country. At times, it's not the leader. It is we, the people. Because a leader, a president cannot come and live with me in my palace in Farato. I live with the local people. And then we are well accepted. We do our business indiscriminately. No interference from the government. We socialize. 2 weeks ago, our annual event was held. That is a Odua anniversary, which it was 15 years. We have been doing it for the past 15 years. So the last one was a big one. And we even invited the few people, but she was not around then. That shows that the Gambia people, they are accommodating, they are lively, they are no discrimination. Now let's go to the man we are here because of him today. When they say Mr. Cherno Njie, well, in the active words, they say comrade. It's a comrade. That's back home in Nigeria. You see people that are fighting for human rights. The people that wanted the society to be better, they call them comrade. And those that have been with them, we know what it takes. Having been a member of Rotary Club Banjul, my club is the oldest Rotary Club in the Gambia, which was formed 1979. And having served as the president, I know what it takes, and also as a community leader, to want to be with your people, want to help your people. What Comrade Njie is doing is empowering Gambia by putting pen into paper to write things about Gambia. It will go a long way. Our children will read about it, will know what has transpired in the past, what happened, and how we have been governed. Whether we were governed very well or we were misgoverned, everybody knows that one. Whether there was peace or peace was truncated, we all know that one. And then me as a Rotarian, even my club, I'm lucky to have my incoming president here. I want him to stand up for recognition. Mr. Njie, a Rotarian. We didn't plan it, I just went into it. I said, wow, I have a Rotarian in our midst. Then, on our own aspect, please, can we join hands and let us celebrate the man of the moment, Comrade Njie. It is a laudable thing to think about your country. But I believe I can quote very well. They said, one of the American presidents said, don't think of what your country can do for you, but think about what you can do for your country. What we can do for our country. If all of us have that one in mind, that what can we do for the Gambia society? What can we do for the Africa? Africa will be great. It will be better. And then culturally, you know, the way you dress, it is the way they will address you. I met Professor Falola almost a year or 2 years ago. We met at the airport in Lagos. This is the way I dress. To Canada, to Europe, to Arab world, I dress like this. I carry my stick. This is the way I dress. You just say, somebody come and proceed. You are a king, you are a cabinet, you are this. I said, yes. Professor Falola approached me. He said, the way you dress, I know you are a king. He said, where? I said, I am the king of the black community in the Gambia. Because I'm very proud of my culture. He said, I live in America, this and that. We talked a lot. And then one of the guys, we talked together 20 years ago. He's now a doctor in one of the universities in America, Dr. Molola. The prof knows him very well. What I'm trying to say is that we should, at all time, try to identify with our culture. If you don't promote our culture, nobody promotes it for us. And nobody. When you talk about we are colonized, we are this and that. No. We were colonized how many years ago? How many decades ago? Are we still under colonial rule? I'm asking. Are we still under colonial rule? No, our self-rule. But the way we portray ourselves, we should dress culturally. I don't say people in America dress like this because the winter and all this, you cannot allow them to dress like this. But we in the African setup, in our own, let us dress to portray our culture so that people will respect us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Highness, for the word of blessings, and of course, for blessing this gathering.
Those were very, very wise.
Sure. We are
and very kind words, and we are honored to have you grace this invitation and be here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my immense pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker for this evening, and that is Professor Toyin Falola. Before he takes the podium, I would give you a brief introduction to who Professor Falola is. Professor Toyin Falola is a Nigerian historian and professor of African Studies. He is currently the Jacob and Francis Sanga Mosika Chair in the Humanities at the University of Texas at Austin. Professor Falola earned his BA and his PhD in history at the University of Ife, now the Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria. He is a fellow of the Historical Society of Nigeria and of the Nigerian Academy of Letters. Falola is an author and editor of more than 100 books, and he is indeed worthy of applause. And he is the general editor of the Cambria African Studies series, also known as the Cambria Press. Professor Falola has received numerous honorary doctorates, lifetime career awards, and honors in various parts of the world, including the Lincoln Award, the Nigerian Diaspora Academic Prize, the Sheikh Anta Diop Award, the Amistad Award, the Cyrus Award for Outstanding Contribution to African Studies, the Africana Studies Distinguished Global Scholar Lifetime Achievement Award, the Fellow of Nigerian Academy of Letters, a Fellow of the Historical Society of Nigeria, and several other awards that I cannot list here today. With that, Professor Falola, I would invite you to take the podium. Thank you.
These are not working. For the what? No, don't worry. It's a pleasure for me to be here this afternoon, and I would like to greet all my colleagues. This morning we had the academic section of this program. We had professors coming from the United States, from Gambia, from Nigeria, and one of us, Professor Gloria, will give a report of the conference. Usually, whenever I give keynote addresses, I speak to various organizations and they ask me to send their greetings. Like the Kabesi, we are from the same city, and I'm a chief of Ibadan. I'm the Obakwita of Ibadan land, and the king of Ibadan says I should extend his greetings on behalf of 6 million people to all of you. My university extends its greetings. I saw the permission of the African Union to extend the greetings of the African Union to you. It's put in writing. So greetings from the African Union. And I also sought greetings from UNESCO. And the Director General of UNESCO greets you and endorses the conference. Thank you very much. The previous speaker, we asked him to give welcome address. But you know, he's a human rights activist. You don't want to give them microphone, you understand? They usually will smuggle themselves to collect the microphone, knowing that once they collect the microphone, there's nothing you can do. So what did he do? He reviewed the book, which is my job. What am I left with? I have two options: to go and sit down and say, but you've listened to the book review. So, excuse me, sir. You are not going to be paid for that review because we did not ask you to give it. So I will forget my book review and write another lecture because that's what I do. And in writing another lecture, in lieu of this book review, I will speak to 3 fundamental issues. The first is what I call the unity of Africa. We are one people who became divided into countries, 53, 54 countries. And because we did not participate in that division, we tend to continue to argue over it and to think we should divide ourselves more. But if you look at our humanity, if you look at our values, if you look at our aspirations, our development, we are one people. If I don't say anything and you look like, and I say, where do you come from? How do you know I'm not from Gambia? My name is Ibrahim. I'm his brother. Cherno and I, we claim the same mother. Cherno's mother gave me my name, Ibrahim. When I was a teenager, I went to a Quranic school. I learned Arabic. I could I could pray in Islam. I could pray for you in Ajami. My mother, when our mother could not have a child and tried, my mother was the only child. She went to the god of thunder, known as Shango, to beg for my mother. My grandmother was a Muslim, married to a Christian pastor. You understand? The pastor, myself, we sent my grandmother on Hajj. When she came back, we went to the church to thank God. So when you say Inshallah, I say Inshallah Jesus. Inshallah Isa. So, but we've allowed ourselves to be separated, to be damaged, to be destroyed by other people. And we need to work on that. Some of us do not believe that Africa should have boundaries, that somebody in Gambia should be able to wake up and go to Cameroon and get a job there, get married to a Cameroonian, and live his life undisturbed. This idea is not new to me. Over 100 years ago, people have called for a new country, United States of Africa. We will get there. We will get there in the way we conduct ourselves. We will get there by allowing our people to exercise freedom of choice where to live. We will get there when we recognize that we are one people. The second issue is about the development of Africa. We are the second largest continent, and we are one of the richest continents. The illicit financial flow from Africa to the West every year is in billions and billions. So they take our money, but they abuse us. They take our money, but they say we are poor. The region from Central Africa to South Africa is the richest in the world. There is no mineral you are looking for that is not there. Gold, diamond, oil. It's so rich. Cameroon is so rich in agriculture that it can feed the entire West Africa, that one country. If we pool our resources, there is no reason why a single African should not have enough food. There is no reason why a single African should not have a job. I endorse the previous speaker in terms of these development challenges. But where does the wealth go? This enormous wealth. Two sets of people, those who colonized us and still continue to exploit us, and those who manage us. Instead of using the money for development, they use the money for their own private projects. They are kleptocrats, stealing a lot of money. And after stealing money, we go to those who colonize us to go and borrow money. We negotiate debts that our citizens already have in their own private accounts. Nigeria wants to borrow $30 billion now. That is not enough money that one of their previous leaders has stolen. Can you imagine? Can you just imagine that level of decadence? So part of this challenge is for our young people, young men, young women, to fight for a better management of our continent. The time of some of us, given our age, is going towards its last phase. Death is a common denominator, but we must challenge young men and women that if they do not work hard in terms of securing better leadership, in terms of contributing to institutional building, to the emergence of good leadership, they will destroy their lives. God will not let people destroy your lives. You say amen. When I pray, you say amen, because you do not know when the angels are passing. So we have to respond to this challenge. As to the book that I'm invited to speak to, which my brother has reviewed, I will add other elements. First, we are going to translate it into French so that our brothers who don't read English and neighbors who read only French will be able to have access to it. Second, we are going to later create an e-edition that you can download. And to the students there, I still keep my promise. I will pay 2/3 to subsidize your purchase of the book. And the reason is that I want you to read it. I want you to draw inspirations from it. And I want you to be part of the challenges of modernity, be part of building a new Gambia, and be part of committing your life. The speaker, the human rights activist, posed a question, and I want to answer it. What does it mean to love a country? That is an important question, and somebody should write a book with that title. What does it mean to love Gambia? Centuries ago, before colonization, communities answered this question. They answered this question from the time the mother was pregnant. And if you look at the contents of our prayers, they also answer this question for you. I'm a sandwich generation. When they sent us to school, to university, they did not send me to university for me to spend my salary on myself only. Listen very carefully, young people. Because now when they send you to university, it is about love and love and love music. And you want to use your degree to buy a car. Yes, we had love. We bought a car. But the main reason why they sent us to school was to do community building. When I was in the university, I was sending people to school. My last year teaching at Obafemi Awolowo University, there were 14 people living in my house. 14 of us. Every day was like a party because we had to cook. My wife and I would do secret meeting in the bedroom where we're going to get money to feed people. I would say, and what I did was very clever. From the time I started my job, I handed my entire salary to my wife. And it's true, when we was at Ife, that salary was not enough. You say, my wife, this is how much they pay me. Go and have anything. Go and have all my salary. So when she asked me, how are we going to feed 14 million people? I said, but you've already collected all my salary. What kind of question is that? That's your problem. That's not my problem. I always say, just give me money for 30 bottles of beer and just give me money for certain gallons of car. The rest is yours. Because thinking about how to feed 14 people with that salary, I did not want to get involved. But of those 14 people, 7 of them today are medical doctors. 3 of them are multi-millionaires. So that the investment we make in our people, they pay off. The investment you make in communities will pay off. If somebody is successful, others will be very successful. And that community building, the king, chairman, my friend, we should emphasize it. And that's one way in which you love your own people. And we have predecessors in loving our country. Marcus Garvey, he paid a big price, like Cherno. The Americans sent him out of the country. He did not have a job. He paid a big price, but he became a hero. Du Bois, a hero, a Pan-Africanist hero, tore his US passport, relocated to Ghana, where he died, where his tomb was. He paid his price. Lumumba, 2 months in power. The conspiracy of the US and Belgium, they removed him from power, took him to a jungle, killed him, cut him into pieces, dumped him into a drum, put acid, and burnt him to ashes. For what? Because he wanted to break the chain of exploitation. He wanted to break the chain of domination. he paid a price. You remember Nkrumah, which has been mentioned today, he paid a price. Anytime you want to do good, to love your country, there's a price to be paid, but there's also heroism and legacy waiting for you. Briefly, the book covers the aspects of Cherno when he was growing up in the Gambia. And I will tell you something that many of you may not know. We are people who go into the diaspora, to Australia, to Europe, to Canada, to the US. The way they abuse their people, you will feel sorry for them. How will you leave your country and be abusing your people? And we warn our people in the diaspora. These are your people. Don't speak bad about your people. You will see in that book how Cherno was proud of his parents, proud of his background, proud of the school. Yesterday we went to his high school. We went to Banjul City, looking at the places where he used to play, where he was playing his pranks as a child. The Kingsway where his father worked, when his father would buy him ice cream. He was born with ice cream in his mouth. When I was eating sand outside, he was already eating ice cream. We went to the grandmother who raised his wife. Very nice place. She's enjoying her old age in peace and in health. And you will see the infusion of pride in that book. If you compare it to other people who left Gambia or Nigeria, living in Houston, hey, who is going to go back to that Gambia? Who is going to go back to that Nigeria? Don't abuse your people. Please, if you see anybody in the diaspora abusing his own people, don't be part of it and warn him. We are the people who raise you. Your mother may not have gone to school, and so what? The fact that your mother didn't go to school does not mean she's not intelligent. The fact that you are intelligent is the genes of the people you are abusing. So, and you could see how the love for his people is so glaring. And you could see that why he's successful in the US, the question he was posing is, how can I go back to my community? How can we rebuild that community? He's followed me to Nigeria before. I wanted to give him a wife there, but he's a tribalist, he's married to a Gambian. I forgive you. I forgive you. And you could see how in his comfort, he still thinks about home. The bulk of this story is about his involvement in the transformation of the Gambia. I know some parts of it, and I want to assure you that there's a lot of thinking before they took that action. That was not their first set of action. Their first set, build a civil society, as Professor Femi Mimiko said, which was a very slow process. They tried building an opposition political party. I attended one of their meetings in Austin. A lot of thought was put to it. I was commissioned, and I did it for free, to do a new constitution for Gambia, which we did. I was commissioned to do a new transformation agenda for Gambia, which we did for free. How do we reform agriculture? How do we reform fishery? How do we create 10 million jobs within 3 years? Those documents are still there. These documents, I think we should print them and circulate them for free, because a lot of thought was given to it. A lot of thinking was given to it. So we already have tremendous documentations in place covering political development, social engineering, cross-border, ECOWAS, all of them were written down. not to profit from it. Those of us who did it did not say, give us money. We did it for free. And when people did things for free, you could see the genuineness in it, and you could see how the love for the country drove them to say, how can we meet these development challenges? I hope I've answered your question, my friend, in terms of how do you love your country. And the challenge is to extend this love for the younger generation, to extend the love to their country, the love to their communities, to give back. I want to close, and I want to surprise Cherno, because he's not aware of this. I'm establishing with 4 other people the Cherno Njie Golf Foundation. I will be committed to spend $20,000 US on Gambia every year in terms of we will be giving scholarship to Gambian citizens. We have here the Dean of Babcock Medical School. We'll be sending people to medical school in Nigeria. We'll pump money into organizing a series of workshops on entrepreneurship, on how to go to graduate school, on how to build networks, computer. We will assist the University of Gambia in workshops in development. And with this, the spirit of the dead and the legacy of Cherno Njie will remain forever alive. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you, Professor, for that very, very inspiring speech. And also thank you for your generosity. The future is hopeful, and we are grateful. A few things struck me in that speech, and one of them was when he talked about African unity and how possible it is. And I always say this, the only thing that is limiting us from achieving the Pan-African dream is, first of all, our imagination. We must dare to believe, and then we must dare to sacrifice, because it will take a lot of sacrifice to step away from what is comfortable to what is new and scary. But it is required. It is achievable. We must restructure our politics to suit our context and to ensure the growth of our continent and of our people. And also he mentioned the need for young people to read the book. And he is very right. There is very little material on Gambian history. As a child growing up and going to school here, I know this. There's a lot of information on British history, and there's very little on African history, and even Gambian history. Very little. As I read the book, I fell in love with the way he described Banjul as a child growing up. I think that is my favorite part of the book. I liked the other parts, and it gave me insight into a lot of things. But the picture that was painted of Bathurst was beautiful. There are some harrowing parts, of course, but there is beauty also, and there's beauty in the harrowing parts. And I appreciate the insight that I got, and I hope those who are here and who are students interested in purchasing the book, you heard that he is purchasing 2/3, he's covering 2/3 of the price, so you would only have to pay 1/3 the price for the book, and I highly recommend that you get it. It will serve you now and later on and inspire you to believe and do better and be better. And now I would allow my co-host, Omar Jaju, to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Marlon, once again. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Dr. Gloria Imagwali from Nigeria. Gloria Imagwali, before you come on stage, allow me to briefly introduce you. She received her BA in History from the University of West Indies in 1973. In 1976, she received a Diploma in Education from the University of London, an MA in History from University of Toronto. She received her PhD in history from Ahmadu Bello University in Nigeria in 1985. She was a visiting scholar and senior associate member at St. Anthony's College, Oxford University in 1990 to 1991, and also a visiting scholar at Queen's Elizabeth House, Oxford in spring 2000. Dr. Emangwali's teaching interest also includes world history, African history, and specific courses on the African diaspora in the Caribbean, the history of South Africa, and African history through film. See, personally, Doctor's personal website, that's the African Indigenous Science and Knowledge System, has been recognized by UNESCO as one of the top 50 websites on Africa. And she is also the chief editor of Africa Update. Please, ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome on stage Dr. Gloria Emangwali.
Hello, everybody, and let me first of all thank you for that very generous introduction. And let me also greet the distinguished members of the high table, including His Majesty, and of course the audience, many of whom were participants or at least observers in terms of some of the recent political developments. Are you hearing me well? Okay. So, people ask me, where are you from? And I say, well, you know what? I'm a Pan-Africanist. That's what I am. That's it. And the question that really would attract the attention of panelists this morning would be some of the issues cutting across regions in the West African case, and also Africa generally. And we find that I made a list here of some of the topics that would be identified. After that, of course, we'll spend a few minutes looking at some of the danger spots and the fault lines that were also identified this morning. We must always leave on a positive note. And so the third segment will look at some of the positive issues, but I wouldn't be that long. So I have to say that the question of military dictatorship, you know, this sort of indefinite term limit context would be identified by most of the panelists. But not only that, the worrying tendency of politicians to promise to do something during the campaign, electoral campaign, and to reverse, you know, that promise, nullify the promise when they get into power. So that was also touched on. Questions about human rights abuses during the Njie administration, and not just the abuses, but also the attempt on the part of the Truth and Reconciliation committees and commissions and whatnot to deal with this. However, one of our panelists, the Dean, where is the Dean? Actually, one of the major points brought out would be that, you know what, we still have to recognize that restitution, compensation, etc., must also be part of the TRC. Because it's one thing to have a truth and reconciliation approach or model, but what about the victims? How much compensation for the lives lost in terms of their siblings, etc.? And so that was another issue. the question of reparative justice and the need for that to be brought into the discussions about truth and reconciliation. The fact that we have two leaders dominating 50 years of post-colonial rule in Gambia would be brought out by a few people, would be mentioned. But these issues that I've mentioned would be looked at across the region. For example, military dictatorship in the Nigerian case would be cited, the question of human rights abuses, and although we didn't really go into the question of truth and reconciliation in the South African case, but I think it was implied that the same kind of observation that, you know, people tend to spend so much time on these commissions without giving back, without giving true compensation. I think that would be implied, not only in terms of the Gambia effort in this regard, but also if you look back at the South African apartheid case. The issue of domination by leaders who don't want to leave would also be mentioned in terms of some African countries. More specific to the Gambia, well, it's really not specific to the Gambia, but the migration crisis and the outflow and the push, if you want, on the part of youth to leave the country, to, you know, even take risky journeys across the Sahara in some cases, or might be transoceanic. That was touched on briefly. And in a way, it's also relevant to countries such as, I think we've had people leaving Nigeria and so on, and outside of the Senegambian region. So these are some of the issues that would be touched on by our very brilliant analysts. Well, the danger spots, the real serious danger spots identified in terms of the present situation in Gambia would also be mentioned. Now, it's not to say that problems have emerged, but you know, as historians and political scientists, you kind of try to look at the big picture and try to, if possible, preempt situations that may occur. For example, the introduction of the attempt to bring the Sharia into the constitutional, you know, remaking has been seen as something that must be very, that everybody should be very cautious about, because it could lead to the entrenchment of a certain kind of fundamentalism. And so far, Gambia has been a model in having, as somebody said, Islam without Islamists. And so that should be maintained. Let us face it, we are in a very dangerous situation in terms of the threat of terrorist activities and whatnot, and people who sort of kind of, you know, shift into fundamentalist activism. So the other thing too that is a sort of danger spot, a fault line if you want, is the question of term limits. The question of making, or the issue of making sure that a president cannot just, you know, extend his time in office from one term to another term, and then he says, okay, you know what, I'll do it a third term. You never know, he may never go again. And that in itself is dangerous. So that's one of the fault lines, you know, seen in terms of the current situation. We are not saying that that's going to happen, but safeguards against the possibility. Safeguards should be put into the Constitution, and also in terms of training civil society to make sure that these term limits are kept and not elongated. I mean, we all know what happened in Rwanda. I'm not talking now about the genocide, I'm talking about the president's decision to stay into power for the next, 25 years or something. Okay, so that's one. Now, the other issue of concern, of course, I should have mentioned this in terms of across the region, was the high unemployment rate. However, Gambia is an exception, and that's a plus, because the unemployment rate is apparently under 10%, apparently. Whereas in Nigeria, well, I don't, sometimes there's unemployment and then there's underemployment, so we can't over-congratulate ourselves there. But in the case of Nigeria, we are probably talking about 30% unemployment. South Africa, and this was mentioned this morning, by the way, South Africa is probably about 50%. So keeping that low unemployment, well, if it's true, if the statistics are true, because we know statisticians manipulate things, politicians manipulate, and so you're never very sure about what the real thing is. But it seems as if that is a possibility. Well, the last segment I want to bring in, and it's going to be brief, is about the positive notes, the positivity, the bright lights. This whole question of the smiling coast that the first speaker talked about. This is I'm in the last section. So I only have about 6 or 7 points, and I'm not going to elaborate on them in terms of positive notes. Number one, the fact that you have valiant, heroic people, such as the author, Cherno and Njie, and others. That's positive. Let's take note of that. Let's build on that. 2, culturally rich society. Let's build on that. Let's continue with our indigenization program in terms of dress, and as the chief, there's a king mentioned. As the king mentioned. 3, the fact that you have what somebody called, a scholar this morning, a wraparound, geopolitical situation with Senegal should be turned into a positive in the context of having strong Senegambia relations. And finally, before they throw me out of here, finally, something has to be done. Well, actually, this should be on the negative side, what I mentioned before. It's not good to have just 10% female representation in parliament. In South Africa, it's 50%. Ethiopia, 50%. And we hope that from 10%, we can have at least 50%, or even 40%, 45% inclusivity. So these are some of the issues we discussed, and it was a pleasure talking about them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
That was very insightful. I missed the presentation, so I appreciate the fact that you broke it down for us. And now for the fun part, we will be having a cultural performance. But before that, some of the members of the high table would like to purchase copies of the book, and we will just allow them to do so, and then we will proceed to the music and entertainment. So, sure, Mike.
So I'm in charge of the book sales, And I want to start with KBC to announce the number of copies that is buying.
Well, I'll give them one. Thank you very much, Prof. I think this is one of the major parts of the why we are here this afternoon. I would like to purchase 5 books for $5,000. And I want my president to pick a copy. President of your committee, the Gambia, pick a copy. I saw the president of Nigeria women in Gambia. I think I saw her. Let her pick a copy. Then the vice president of Yoruba community in Gambia, just 5 copies. He should come also for a copy. Then the immediate past president of Yoruba community in Gambia, and they daily pick a copy. And the last copy is for me. Thank you very much.
I want to call on Vice Chancellor Sonny to announce the number of copies he's buying.
Yes, I was just trying to find out the equivalent of dollars in dollars. So I'm taking 5 copies for my library as twice the official price of sales. So once I find out that one, I will let you know. But 5 copies for the University Library. Thank you very much.
Please announce the number of copies you're buying.
Distinguished KBC, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the top table, ladies and gentlemen, I already have a copy of the book. I also have a soft copy, but I'm also still going to buy.
Yes,
but more importantly, I'd like to salute the convener, Professor Falola, of that wonderful initiative of the Cherno Njie Foundation. And I'd like to make a commitment that we support that foundation from time to time. In addition to that, thank you.
Mberi would like to buy on behalf of the family. I'm calling on you. How many copies on behalf of the family you want to buy? The chairman, excuse me, sir, yes. Our human rights activist, you love the book so much, you want to use it for community organizing, to preach to young people. How many copies are you committed to so they put them on your table? How many? 5 copies, please. Okay, well, on behalf of all this, I'll buy for all the students here, I pay 2/3. The reason, why can't I pay for everything? I can afford it, but I will not do that. Because if you don't use some of your own money, you don't appreciate it. So you pay 1/3, I help you to pay the 2/3 of it. As to how many copies, I don't know. But as to all the number of the students who buy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let's proceed with the program because
we are proceeding
we are running
with
out
entertainment now, and we have Li Khalam Gidiwa for some minutes.
have a cultural performance by Auntie Aida Fall and Uncle Mataje. Later on, we will have Jalimadi, who will perform the kora for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Can we get seated and continue with the
Ladies and
program?
gentlemen, we would ask that those who wish to purchase a copy of the book wait until a bit later so that Mr. Njie can sign it for you. We would like that you just hold on a little bit until later so that you can get your signed copy and the program would not be interrupted. Thank you very much, Auntie Aida and Uncle Matar, for that beautiful performance. Njie.
So next, Yamalan, we are having Jalimadi to continue with the entertainment.
Next we are having Jalimadi Kanute.
So Jalimadi,
Prince of Kora. We deserve the kingship for the older people.
Uncle Cherno, Njie, sama oncle la ak oncle Babouda waa Njie Kunda ak Seydou Toukar yaa ngi tey tey moom dama ñëw si sama bés daanaka kontaan naa trop di la ñaanal yàlla may la fan bu gudd ak wér gu yaram li nga bëgg a yàgg wax yàlla na ko yàlla defal li nga defal suma yaay mën na ma leen koo fay waa Njie Kunda li nga defal suma yaay mën na mën na leen koo fay li rek laa mën a def mooy ma ñëw woyal leen and then oil. So Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jalimadi. Round of applause to Jalimadi.
Thank you very much. The main ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to the program, I was just told that the Yoruba Association of the Gambia would like to present Mr. Cherno with a gift. We're not done with the entertainment part. We still have an act left, but before that we will just allow them to present their gift to Mr. Cherno.
So apparently we need more Jalimadi. Yeah, Alan. We need more Jalimadi. The audience is saying we need more Jalimadi. Jalimadi has to come back.
More Jalimadi?
Yes.
Yeah, I support that. Because I didn't have enough. I wasn't going to protest, but since I have backing, we want more.
For the next 5 minutes, Jalimadi.
Yes. And then we have the presentation of the gift. Yeah, some more Quora in the meantime. Thank you.
Yes.
Shall we, if it will be possible, we can have the presentation of the gift while we play the Quora, and when once we're done, Jalimadi can begin singing. Yes. Uncle Cherno, they would like to present you with a gift. So if you would kindly.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm standing here representing Yoruba community in Gambia, and we just have a few things to present to our professors and also our special guests in our midst. But before I go ahead, I want to quickly introduce my the president of Yoruba community in the Gambia, standing by my right. That is Pastor Olusegun Matthew Ajibike, that is the president of Yoruba community in the Gambia. Without too much ado and wasting of time, we want to quickly recognize. We want to quickly recognize Mr. Njie as the patron of Yoruba community in the Gambia, and we have recognized him, and he was introduced to the Yoruba community in Gambia by Professor Falola. Mr. Njie, you are highly honored, and we are ushering you into Yoruba community as one of our patrons. Our president will present it to him. Thank you very much. Also, we want to use this opportunity to present this certificate of appreciation to the link, because in life you must have somebody that will link you up to. As a God will not come down from heaven to come and help you, so you have to get you through somebody. So we are presenting this to Dr. Bayo Omolola, and it can be received by Professor Falola on his behalf. And it's one of of the founding members of the Yoruba community in the Gambia. I must present to him. So hold on, sir, don't go yet. Also, we have another certificate of appreciation which goes to the chief himself, Professor Toyi Falola, in recognition of his financial and cultural support towards Yoruba community in the Gambia. It shall be presented by the president of Yoruba community.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, the Yoruba community in the Gambia. So we go along with the Kora for some minutes. Jalimani.
Cherno
Next, I am going to invite the Gambia Yoruba Association Cultural Group to do a little performance for you. If they are ready, they can come in. You need a mic. How many? You need one? 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 Do you want one? 5.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have Yoruba culture, cultural dance that we want to present. And also, one of our masquerades we call Enyo. Also, just within a short period to get you entertained. Thank you very much.
Yes.
table is asking for another halal session.
What?
So briefly, the halal session for 5 minutes. I think the high table needs more halal, so we're going for a 5-minute halal session.
No, we can. How about this in the background and then. Yes. So apparently we're not done with the entertainment. We're just gonna go with 5 more minutes of halam, and then Uncle Njie will present his statement. Thank you, Auntie Aida and Uncle Mata. We will proceed with the program. Next, we're going to invite Uncle Babakan Njie, brother to Uncle Cherno Njie, to give the closing remarks, and then we will have the author statement. Uncle Babakan Njie? No. Yes, you know. But before Uncle Babakan Njie takes the stage, I would like to give you a brief introduction to him. Uncle Babakan Njie is a mechanical engineer. He worked for the public, private, and international institutions such as the former Gambia Public Transport Corporation as the Director of Automotive Engineering Services. He worked for Breakwold Company as a service manager, the Gambia Port Authority as Chief Mechanical Engineer. He then left the Gambia to work for the United Nations Department of Peacekeeping and Operations for about 15 years. He graduated in 1983 with a master's degree in mechanical engineering from Volgograd Polytechnic Institute, now named Volgograd State Technical University. It is under his leadership that the first ever assembled large passenger bus was built in the Gambia in 1998. He is now a consultant and a passionate civic rights activist. Applause.
Pada buku yang kerja di forum Malaysia, maka yang Malaysia terlihat bekerja betul-betul putih. Nila, Nila, kau kerja semua ini Nila, lebih jelas senjata sakor ramai samam. Yang tengah hidup yang kita terus ini yang kita jadi kamu luka satu dengan alas sebela. Sebuah jahat-jahat, ia wajahnya ke saya. Tuba apakah masalah dulu sekali di bawah sabai. Bahawa kerja ia sahur ramai samam. Ia tengah hidup kita terus ini kita jadi kamu luka satu dengan alas sebela. Kamu alam dalam makbaju masih belum jahat-jahat. Mak kontan tiaw.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, many people who don't know, between me and Cherno will always wonder. And to clear the air, I always say, he is the bigger brother and I am the elder brother. Now, some of you may have heard of Private Njie. He was a member of the December 30th. He was among those who came to remove Gambia, or to help remove Gambia from tyranny and evil. He was sentenced to death. He had 2 death sentences on him. And he spent about 2 years together with his other colleagues, about 5 or 7 of them. For 2 years, they were held in chains, hands and legs, for 2 years, for 24 hours every day, except if they want to go to ease themselves. Now, this is the level of evil we had in the Gambia. We have all learned and have heard so much from the TRRC and from the Janet Commission. There is no doubt in any Gambian, in my mind, that what we had here was real evil and terror. So we have these Gambians, whom we now call the December 30th, who left their comfort zones in different parts of the world, mostly in the United States, who said, we are going to be ready to lay down our lives to end evil and tyranny in this country. Now, since that happened, there has been various analysis and discussions of what they did, whether it is right or wrong, or whether it was the right approach or so. There are some legal minds who go to the point of saying it was illegal. Yes, I agree it was illegal. But what is legality? And what is justice? And I want us all to understand that there is a big difference between legality and justice. Yahya Jammeh had a parliament that was a rubber stamp parliament. So obviously, he can pass any law. And any law that was promulgated as a law of the Gambia through the rubber stamp that he had, anything or anybody who wants to do anything against that, of course, would be doing something illegal. But was it just? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves. The ANC, where Nelson Mandela belonged, was regarded as a terrorist organization. Mandela himself, Margaret Thatcher, called him a terrorist. But why? Because he was fighting against apartheid. If you read the book, Cry Freedom, where we have the narrative of Steve Biko, I can recall reading through that book when the policeman came to his house to say he's going to arrest him and said, well, the law is on my side. The policeman said, Steve, the law is on my side. And Steve turned around and said, but justice is on mine. Now, what the December 30th did was to establish justice in this country by ending tyranny and evil that prevailed in this country. And I do not support them because my brother was there. I only support them because of the horrible revelations that we all know that has happened in this country. Before I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Your Royal Highness, I also want to recognize those that have paid the ultimate price. Someone like Captain Jagajan, Lamin Sane, and Alaji Jajajas. I also want to recognize the many Gambians who have laid down their lives, those who have been to prison, those who have gone through torture, and so much other human rights abuses. I can recall all their names, but one can always talk of Deida Haidara, Solo Sandeng, and many more. We want to use this opportunity to celebrate and recognize their lives and commend the sacrifices that they did to help free Gambia from evil and terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to say that yes, it was necessary to use force to remove Jammeh, because Jammeh left only when commendable force was assembled and ready to remove him from power. That was the time he left. He didn't leave because we voted. Yes, he knew, he said the election was the most credible election, it was rig-proof. And I would urge you to go back and listen to those videos of Jammeh. But then after 5 days, he threw everything under the carpet and said he was going to cancel the results and run another election. For people like me, I knew that was too good to be true. When Jammeh said he accepted, my brother here, OJ, could tell you, I had to call him many times to tell him that is too good to be true. Take care of your security. The guy has other plans. And I was not surprised that after a few days he changed his mind. But then it was only when a mighty force was assembled and ready to move him that he left. Ladies and gentlemen, I want also us to recognize the commendable sacrifice done by gallant members of the armed forces who made sure that Njie did not steal the elections. They made sure that the votes that were ready or prepared by Njie to steal the elections were destroyed when they burned the APRC office. That was the catalyst that ensured that Njie did not win the election. Listen to the interviews of Ali Njie, and he will tell you that he was pressured to change the results. He was pressured to change the votes. So that's also another vindication of the actions of the December 30th. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, let us take a reflection of who we are as Gambians and why did we have a Njie for 22 years. I was in the UN with my colleagues, and in the mission where I had worked, there were 5 prominent Gambians holding responsible positions. And whenever we cross with our colleagues, it doesn't add up. They will say, well, here are top competent Gambians holding top positions, but how can you have a president so horrible, excuse my word? It doesn't add up. So we must ask ourselves, how did we come to that stage, not only for 5 years, but for 22 years? And I believe it is time for us to reckon with ourselves and take stock of what type of Gambia do we want? What type of leadership do we want? Are we supposed to have leaders that are accountable to us, that are our servants? Or are we to have leaders that we praise sing? It is up to us. Nations can only be developed if the people are ready to participate in that development. And evil will only prosper where good men and women stand by and do nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to use this opportunity to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank Kirfatu for helping to organize this event. I want to thank the hotel staff and management for providing the environment and support for this occasion. But more especially so, I want to thank the distinguished and eminent scholars who traveled and came from far away to participate in the conferences and this book launch. I would especially want to thank the Yoruba community and Your Royal Highness as well for leaving your valuable time to come and join us. And I would also want to thank my brother and friend, Professor Falola, whom I have told yesterday that I would want to have an internship with you, because whatever you tell him, he has the answer ready. Finally, I want to thank my brother and friend, Cherno Njie, for being ready, for you and your colleagues of December 30th, for being ready to lay down your lives to remove Gambia from evil and tyranny. I want to recognize all the members of December 30th, both those who are here and those who have laid down their lives. that we appreciate and recognize the sacrifices you have done for this country. I want to thank you all very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I therefore want to declare and say, sweat is invisible in rain is launched.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Babu Karjai, for those wonderful remarks. Yamale, we now nearing completion or
Yes,
conclusion of the event.
Very close to the end of this event.
We are about to introduce Mr. Cherno.
Professor Falola is asking that Mr. Cherno allows him to read his speech for him. I'm sure he will manage his time well. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to introduce to you the man of the evening, Mr. Cherno himself, to deliver his order statement. But before he comes, as we did for everybody else, I doubt there's need to introduce him, but we will just do so. There's a whole book written about him. But I'll allow
have to summarize.
My brother.
We can't say everything about him. Just to introduce him briefly so he can talk the talk. Cherno Njie, most of you might know. Okay. He's an Austin-based real estate developer, investor, entrepreneur, and a philanthropist. He was born in Banjul, then he was called Batos. After growing up and working in the Gambia, he moved to Texas in 1987. Afterwards, he began his 25-year career both as a state official at the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, and in the private sector as president of the Songhai Development Company. In 2015, fast forward, he was involved in a failed coup attempt to depose then Gambian President Yahya Jammeh. Upon his return to the United States, he was arrested and convicted of violating the Neutrality Act of 1794. Cherno now lives freely in Austin and with his family and children. But there's more to this. Please welcome on stage Mr. Cherno Njie.
Well, we're coming to the end of this. And that translates to a story is best told firsthand by the protagonist. I decided to write my memoirs, Sweat is Invisible in the Rain, based on the Wolof proverb, after my experiences of the last 6 years, a time that coincided with my dangerously rising alarm about the Jammeh regime, I said to myself, and with the urging of friends and family, let me set the record straight on December 30th, which at the past few years have borne out, was a significant event in Gambia's political history. But I also wanted to examine the contours of my life and to give an account of the forces that shaped me and my worldview. And finally, to say something about the country I remember as a child. It is with that country of my memory in mind and some observations of its history that I wish to make some suggestions on how we can build a better Gambia for all into the future.
The eminent historian of the Middle East, Bernard Lewis, has argued that nations beset with trauma and decline, which characterizes the Gambia of the last 2 decades, tend to ask one of two questions. Who did it to us, or what did we do wrong? The first questions assign blame to an outside force or a streak of bad luck. The second accepts responsibility and engages in self-reflection to locate the problem while recognizing the centrality of human agency and volition. I believe we are precisely at that moment in our history as a country when the questions we ask and the answers we provide will determine the path of development for decades to come. For a question rightly put is half resolved. It is my belief then that the right question to ask is, what did we do wrong? And as Gambians with agency and volition, what lessons have we learned and how do we move on? We urgently need to recognize with a renewed sense of responsibility that we control our destiny, and as a people we need to come together to chart a better course. There are 4 areas we must re-examine. We need to redefine the norms of citizenship. We need to reassess the role of government. We need a new openness beyond maslaha. And finally, we need to decide what type of character we should expect of our leaders. What does it mean to say, I am a Gambian citizen? Do we immediately conjure up a place we call home, or do we think of shared values? Are we either Banjurian, Badibunka, or Nyominka, or Gambian? Of course, these are not mutually exclusive. One can be a Gambian from Banjul or Badi, but we need to develop a Gambian creed of national identity based not on ethnicity or region, but one that gives primacy to core values such as liberty, pluralism, freedom of expression, religious tolerance, and the rule of law. We should also add what we learn at home. Ngor, Jom, Foroya. We must engender citizenship based on acceptance that we are a multi-ethnic society in which all citizens are equal before the law and entitled to the same consideration by the state regardless of ethnicity or place of origin. Citizenship that promotes a common purpose and belonging, and one that abstains from the idea that the majority, whether political, ethnic, or religious, is first among equals. Some things should be beyond the reach of a majority, even when they could be attained by popular will. We want a government that expresses the will of the majority, but one that is at the same time sensitive to minority rights, be they ethnic, political, or religious. We should avoid a winner-take-all style of governance. Secondly, we need to redefine the compact between the government and the citizens. What do we expect from our government? What is our duty as a citizen? The government has a central role to play in providing public goods. However, it will not absolve us from the struggles of daily life or personal responsibility to manage our affairs, nor undertake the role of raising a family. The government will not relieve us of our civic duties to pay our taxes and act as a responsible member of society. We must educate ourselves on the activities of the government at the local, regional, and national level. We expect a lot from politicians, often outside their official duties. They, in turn, make promises far beyond their ability to deliver. It is not the responsibility of my National Assembly representative or local council member to pay the school fees for my child, or provide me with daily fish money, or buy me a ram for my naming ceremony. That is for me to do as a responsible member of society. There is a Wolof proverb that says, "Gor boko joherum dunde buyagenga mom." If a freedman depends on you for his livelihood, he is in truth enslaved. Self-determination is the most taxing form of governance, for it involves active engagement, integrity, and the cultivation of the habits of reflection, persuasion, and tolerance. The American Constitution John Adams wrote was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the governance of any other. I hope our new Gambian Constitution will engender tolerance, accountability, and solidarity, all critical ingredients for human flourishing. Third, we need openness to each other and to ideas and inquiry. Deng Xiaoping, the late Chinese leader, famously said, at the dawn of the reform movement that ushered an unprecedented lifting of millions of Chinese out of poverty, seek truth from facts. Open-mindedness is not just lovely, it is essential for personal growth and creativity. The toleration of dissenting views, especially those that are deemed to be outside the mainstream, should be welcomed. Heresy is the font of innovation. Ideas begin as minority views before they gain wide currency. And scientific breakthroughs usually start from a process of trial and error. So the expression of controversial thoughts should not be suppressed because they make us feel uncomfortable. If we do so, we encourage self-censorship and stifle innovation and original thinking. We should teach young people, especially not what to think, but the tools of how to think. Critical thinking skills should be part of the school curriculum at a very early age. We must teach them the habit of skepticism and not that of conformity. Openness also means holding each other accountable. We must move away from what I call the culture of maslahat, an unwillingness to censure bad behavior, or only doing so in a selectively self-serving manner. To end this culture of silence, we need to look no further than the victims of such corruption to get an idea of the human toll our failure to speak up and do the right thing has enabled. These are not victimless crimes. When state resources are siphoned off through corruption, we pay a price. How many children have been denied proper education and are languishing without hope? How many infants have died because of the lack of prenatal and postnatal care in our hospitals? How many farmers have been denied access to new technologies and resources to increase their yield and improve their living standards? To stand up and be counted is both a religious and ethical imperative. Finally, what character should we look for in a leader? Poor leadership has been the bane of many African countries. Leadership is not just the domain of politicians, but essential in all aspects of human endeavor. There are political, religious, business, and cultural leaders at all levels of society. Some of the most significant failures we've had over the last 50 years as a nation, and especially over the Jammeh years, have been the result of an abdication of leadership at all levels. We must recognize that leadership is about service. Service cannot be meaningful without a moral compass and personal integrity. For the leader, it is about the value you can add to improve the lives of your fellow citizens. It is about them and not about your self-importance, your greatness, or mansaya. The people are sovereign. We must insist on leaders who have a vision and who can articulate. People need hope. They need real hope and not false hope. We must choose leaders who are competent,
who know enough and yet have the humility to acknowledge what they do not know, who know that at best he or she has only partial truths and not the font of all wisdom. The Wolof have an adage for this as well. Njie denko jubanti. It's a full-fledged philosophical statement that recognizes that the leader is not only not infallible, but that the leader needs honest feedback so that she can make the right decisions. It is no accident we need courageous leaders. It is no accident that when we say a politician is brave, it is usually when he is telling the truth. Without courage, you cannot make the tough but necessary decisions to lead. Above all, we need leaders with wisdom, that rare quality to exercise moral will and excellent judgment. Those who know to do the right thing and when to change course when the facts themselves change. Those who place the greater good over their personal interest. Am I looking for a perfect leader? Not at all, for there is no such thing. But the leaders we select should be the best reflection of ourselves. Ultimately, if we want good leaders, we must begin by holding ourselves accountable. People who hold themselves accountable are more likely to hold others to the same standard. And when accountability becomes the norm, truly outstanding leaders will emerge. The issues I have outlined here were part of the systemic changes central to the December 30th project. Those of us who were part of it recognize that ending the Jammeh regime was only the starting point for changing the status quo, and must for ensuring that Gambia reaches its full potential. We all want a better country, a country that, though small, will not be insignificant, a nation that stands tall because of the strength of its values and the character of its citizens. We remember citizens like Solo Sending and many others who struggled without the glare of publicity and whose sweat remained invisible. I had the honor of working closely with Colonel Lamin Sane, Captain Jagajan, Alaji Zadinas, Alaji Baro, Musa Assad, Modun Njie, Abdullah Job, Papa Fall, Banka Mane, Landing Sonko, and many others who have not been publicly identified. Sadly, some did not see Jammeh forced out of power. We collectively carry on the project of rebuilding the Gambia so that such evil can never claim the lives of good men. I remember each of our fallen heroes with a heavy heart. They did not die in vain. I see their legacy everywhere in this country. I mentioned earlier the lessons of my parents that I've discovered in writing the book about my life as a young man is so tightly wound up in my place in Gambian society of the last decade. The values that my mother and father imparted are more and more visible to me in my instinct to serve the Gambian nation, however much of a surprise it may seem to me. It is their words that ring in my ears today as the Gambia continues its long path of rebuilding and development. So too, I wish to express immense gratitude to my family, to those who have passed already, but whose spirit remain with us, invisible as I sweat, and to those who continue to support me, who fill my life with joy and give me a purpose in this world. To my loving wife, Fatu, who give me a chance every day to practice the lessons of my parents. To my beautiful children, Dukure, Mary, Sasum, and Ndam, to whom I have the opportunity to teach those lessons. To my friends on this and the other side of the Atlantic, who continue to support me in all my endeavors. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. has been so much insightful. Yeah, Marlon.
Thank you, Mr. Cherno. I wish to sincerely thank you for those thought-evoking, highly inspiring, and quite touching words. And I want to thank you also for sharing your story with us. And in doing so, you also told our stories, the stories of our nation, and the story of our past and present. We are going to move on with the program. It's drawing to a close. Now we're going to allow the members of the public to ask questions to Mr. Njie if they have any. And he would answer your questions.
Yes, so just let me see where you are. They can deliver the mic if you have any questions for Mr. Njie.
Yes, so we would have a mic that would go around, and we'd have one other mic for Mr. Njie. Is it working? Is that mic going?
Yeah.
Hello?
So if there is no question for Njie, we can carry on.
No, ini bara.
Alright, okay.
Welcome.
Basically, lot of lala me along is cool, man, that I can really relax.
What the madam?
Yeah, that's
what the madam?
Yeah.
Let him do somebody.
That's fine.
Grand villa.
That's fine.
Slowly. Yes. No.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people are basically me alone because they relax. So it's basically that I can amuse them.
Nina Fanny say what? Nidia, Nena Grand Villa is the best guest house in the Gambia.
Beji andika Grand Villa Guest House. Na labungul bebe senyaring adum na bungul bebe nyarandiring coming ibela fila ila suwe taranyame. Until Grand Villa na kiliano la lafino wale mukawatin telkang. Na ye sabati Grand Villa yela kodo na fa kalamuta.
Oh man, this is like a paradise.
I know.
I so much love this place.
Thank you.
Trust me, I love this place.
You can move somebody and what you want.
Yeah.
And know what Gambia Grand Villa.
I tell you. I love this place. Okay. I love this place, man. Oh yeah.
Ni lefta na kuo keso sotola. Futama Oljuntum Paradise Estate. Mbaya Commandiroke 7527218. Wale futana website auto www.grandvillaguesthouse.com. Grand Villa Guest House.
Dreaming of owning a property in a prime location with great proximity and fantastic neighborhood? EJ Investments Sanyang Seaview Estate is the best choice you have been waiting for. Our Sanyang Seaview Estate is approximately 15 minutes drive away from the busy hub of Brusubi roundabout and into the heart of nature, where you can have a peaceful and relaxed lifestyle with your family. You can buy a finished 4-bedroom story with 5-year flexible payment plan or a service plot with 2-year payment plan option. With over 300 homes, you will enjoy big tar roads with covered drainage, modern electrification with solar street lights, gated entrance with security post, and a breath-catching experience of our beautiful sea view and lake view. You can own a home today at our Sanyang Seaview Estate. Call us today on 446-4838 or 325-9220. Visit our website on ejinvestments.net. EJ Investments, first in property.
Yaran yilla domoro kadiyata
boy jannon sikes restaurant
e say nakko be ninna dimbal nimba domoro kala janno
domoro seneyata adiyata topotoro fanan kendema bije luntan during tamala abeka domoro ki janni adi manda wala de teka we bijele anim fanan ka fadi jang ikono e fa e ka fa minne ko pastry anim bakery iko fanan be kalele badde lomba conference lomba workshop lomba ye fo fendin lon dunia kono domoro betama nyillom international otoda number 1
amanke ba do mo la jang damman
esa do mo jang is atariya
wo mu kubandi
sa na ko sa futandin
oto sa na ko be mu CK's restaurant
ndafa na janna mu yat ni manje do mbijam
aban
CK's restaurant, known for best quality food and customer satisfaction.
All right.
Honey, did you remind him that the last time he sent the money, it was not enough to buy all the provisions?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell him.
Are you guys talking about money transfer to buy provisions?
Yes.
But don't you know about Baluwo?
Baluwo? What is Baluwo?
Baluwo is a service that your son can use to send provisions directly to you guys from the shop. And you don't have to worry about the exchange rate.
Tell me how Baluwo works.
It's very simple.
Just log on to baluwo.com and shop, or download the app on your phone. You can shop on the website or using the app to buy online basic products for your family and friends. With Baluwo, you decide what your money is spent on. Your money, your choice. Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.